Today, your boy Speed is going to be talking about Crystal Maiden. This is a hero that Secret has recently started picking. It's a hero that I feel like is pretty good. It's also one of the more popular position 5s in Dota 2. So I want to go over a couple of the key points that you need to implement if you want to be a good Crystal Maiden. Because this hero is very weird. Its spells cost an absurd amount of mana. Crystal Nova is 130 mana. Frostbite is 140. How do you sustain that? Well, that's the question we'll be answering today. Because this hero does a lot of damage, it's just whether or not you can actually do that damage. So let's hop into it and see what Secret does, especially PUPPEY. Oh wait, psych, I forgot. Not everyone has a GameLeap sub yet. Alright. This is the last time I'm stopping you, but if you don't have a GameLeap sub, you're living life wrong. You're only going to be here for another, what, 60 years, 50 years? You could die tomorrow. Why would you want to die without a GameLeap sub? Everyone's going to know you at your funeral that you didn't have one. That's pretty embarrassing. So get in while you still can. Click the link down below, and I hope to see you there. Alright, so the first thing I want to note, now this is a bit hard to do in pubs, but it is possible. It's actually Aggro Tri-Laning. It's something that Secret consistently is doing with CM. And the reason for that I see is it's a very good hero with Drow because it sets up a lot of kill potential with Drow. But most importantly, it has 2 nukes at level 2, and in Tri-Lanes, it's very hard to get to level 3, like quickly, right? There's just a lot of XP getting split around, and so if you have a hero like CM who has a hard level 2 spike, where a lot of heroes have a hard level 3 spike, you can do much better in a Tri-Lane. So that concept right there I think is important to know. But nonetheless, let's talk about the items. These items are crucial. If you don't buy items like PUPPEY does here, you shouldn't even play Crystal Maiden. You should just pick a completely different hero, and you should also smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Come on, if I caught you off guard. But no, these items are crucial. 3 mangoes and a clarity and a lot of regen, right? Do not buy a windlace, don't buy the tranquil boot components. Buy a ton of mana regen, especially mangoes. If you don't spam mangoes, and you're like, oh, Speed, but when I play CM, I don't need them. That means you're playing a bad CM, because you definitely do. Now, the first thing I'd like to note is him taking Frostbite. This is something that I've seen quite a bit now. A lot of CMs are starting to shift towards Frostbite again. A couple of reasons for that. It is a lower cooldown to start, meaning you can, chain them together a little bit better. But most importantly, it does 20 extra damage to the hero, and it disables them, keeps them in place for 1.5 seconds. Now, the slow is pretty ridiculous. Crystal Nova is a 4.5 second slow for 20%, which is really good. But in this case, I really like what he does here because taking the Frostbite easily allows YapzOr to close the gap. Where the Crystal Nova would have as well, it would have helped, but it wouldn't have been nearly as effective. And because of this, they can cog up Yataro and pick up an early first blood onto the Arc Warden. And that goes to show, how smart Secret is as a bunch of players. Not only does YapzOr take cogs, something very untraditional on Clockwork, PUPPEY takes Frostbite, something also a little bit weird. And that's what I mean, guys. These little switch ups are really important once you get to the high level. But don't fret about it too much in your own games. Just make sure you understand why they did it. Now, I really love this whole sequence together because it's often what I try to teach to my students when I'm coaching them on support, which is the simple concept of go aggressive at level 1. Once, the creep wave is stabilized, you cast a couple spells, secure the range creep. You don't have to do anything insane. If you're playing Crystal Maiden, don't run through the creep wave unless you have a Tri-Lane like they do here, but cast a couple spells, secure the range creeps if your carry needs you to do so. Then, after that, what you look to do immediately is pop your clarity when you're backing up and pull. And it's really the perfect sequence because when you're pulling, obviously you're not going to get contested right away. You will eventually, probably not right away. And you can see PUPPEY right away is, believe it or not, yes, going to jungle. He's jungling. Now this is particularly effective when you are aggro tri-laning, as the large camp is actually closer to you than the opponent. And this is what he's going to do. How cool is this? He pops a clarity, backs up, pulls the camp all the way out to make sure it's as far away as possible from the enemy, which also, by the way, denies the creep from the Enchantress, right? Another important thing to note, now the Enchantress just doesn't have a broken creep. Like, imagine if the Enchantress gets the Satyr, the whole lane changes. And so not only does he deny that, he also gets a lot of XP. That's massive. All of a sudden, they're going to hit a really early level 2 spike. The Drow will hit level 2 much sooner because they don't have to sap as much. And they'll basically all be level 2 when Miposhka and Yataro on the Enchantress and Arc Warden are also level 2. Alright, this next play here is also fascinating, honestly. It's bizarre. It kind of surprised me when I first saw it, but he actually just straight up frostbites a range creep. And the reason why he does this is because they want to stabilize the lane. So they know that another creep wave is about to come in, right? The enemy team has a lot more creeps than they do. And when they do this, they kill off this range creep. It allows them to go onto the Enchantress and go onto the Arc Warden. Very crucial, because if they don't do this, the lane is just going to push all the way into Secret's tower. It's then going to shove back into the enemy, and that's obviously very suboptimal. And now coming here is where things really get juicy, and this is what I talked about with CM having such a big level 2 power spike. A lot of supports would really have very minimal impact here, but CM has 2 relatively decent long-range nukes, and because of that, he's going to lead with his Q. Very important to note, your Q has longer cast range, right? You can clip them with the edge of it, and because of that, they're able to close the gap here, right? Just barely clips him, just barely. Because of that, Yapster's able to get in range for the battery assault and the cogs, then he can follow up with the frostbite after the cogs ends, by the way. Note how he doesn't stack the stuns. Yes, this is technically a stun in some regard. And they pick up a kill. And this is where the mangoes really come into play. If he doesn't have the mangoes, well, he'd be useless. He would have to go back to base. But because he has mangoes, he can pop 2 of them, which is pretty nuts. But hey, it picks up another 100 experience to split between the boys, and quite a bit of gold as well. The next thing he does as well is important. He ships out 2 clarities and a stick. And whenever you're playing CM, you want to really spam your spells for kill attempts. But then you have to, reinvest that gold that you should be getting from kills or from harassing, from polling, from killing large creeps into more mana regen, right? Such as sticks and mangoes and clarities. Then at level 3, you're going to take your passive, and all in all, you can harass people just an absurd amount. You can see here, putting a lot of pressure onto the Mars. So next up, let's talk about when PUPPEY actually starts jungling, and this is an important thing to understand on CM. A lot of people will jungle at just very improper times in which it will actually hurt their teammates. And I see this with position 5 players a lot. What they'll do is they'll just stack camps and jungle when their teammates actually still need them. You have to be very careful about this, because now, quickly, I'm just going to show you from minute 4 until minute 10, if I just speed through it, he's kind of just going back and forth and protecting the drow. They don't really pick up any kills, they don't do anything insane. He walks back to base, picks up his boots, gathers some items for his drow, and he's just securing her a good game. He's not focused on roaming, he's not focused on stacking camps or making plays. He knows that the drow could die to Mars, and so in this situation, if your carry needs your help, if your carry really needs your help and can't lane without you, that should be your #1 priority. Just make sure they can sustain until they can actually leave the lane. And for Drow, the time in which she can leave the lane is level 6. That's when the hero starts jungling very efficiently. And so yeah, no joke, is just kind of like walking back and forth and nuking people. I think he wanted to pull as well, but obviously this is a very hard lane for CM. If you ever get caught out by the Mars and the Lina, you're just instantly dead. And the first time he actually leaves the lane to make a stack is when the Drow is actually really far back. She's already in a safe area, she can't get gone on. Probably won't get gone on, I should say. And now he can make a stack. After that, he sees the Lina and the Mars approaching, so he once again is going to look to protect her, right? Scouts out the Lina, they pick up a nice little kill onto the Lina, and then after that, as they make a quick little kill attempt onto the Mars, pick him up as well. Pretty insane how much work they're doing, the CM and the clock. Really nice combo. You two together can just kill basically anyone, and you'll always have mana. And on top of that, he even helps Matama Man even more here. Frostbite's the creep. He's going to try to stack the Ancients one more time, picks up the Banner Rune, and now he can jungle. Why? Well, the Mars and the Lina TB top, they gave up. They're not pressuring the Drow anymore. And when he sees this, now it's his time to shine. This is when PUPPEY really kicks into full PUPPEY mode. And you'll see them do this on every game, on every hero that he plays that can jungle. Whether or not it's Chen or Prophet or CM, he will always do this. He will spend a lot of time in the jungle, making stacks, making plays, and only TP into fights. Note how as the position from 5 CM, he is not actually setting up the fights, rather TPing into the fights, right? Because he's not the initiator. This next play here is a very good understanding of spellcasting on Crystal Maiden that you guys should try to copy as well in your games. And as his clock has gone on here, you can see he's going to lead with his Q, right? Very important. Not only is it the spell you're going to be maxing in most games, right? Typically you'll max your Q. There are games where you can max Frostbite if you think it's particularly good for locking down a Quap or an Ember or Puck. Maybe those are the main threats. Okay, you can take your W, max it out. But in most games, you're going to max your Q. And as we talked about earlier, it is a longer range spell. So you lead with your Q. That is how the fight should start, always. You were trying to make sure you can get 2 Qs out in a fight. That should be your goal in some regard. Now here, in this case, his clock is getting gone on. The clock actually cogs the guy up, and he goes for an ulti. Unfortunately, the Shockwave actually pulled the CM into range of the RP, and the Drow multi-shot actually missed. But all in all, that's how you want to execute on CM. You Q, you Frostbite, and then only on the outside of the fight do you Freezing Field. The outside of the fight. And it really should not hit more than one person. If it's hitting more than one person, you're probably overextending, or they're overextending, in which case it's okay. The next thing I'd like to note about CM that I think is an underutilized mechanic on the hero, even though this fight isn't necessarily the best example of it, I think it just goes to show a mindset that you can have with your Freezing Field. And what that mindset is actually to use Freezing Field in order to bait out spells. So let me ask you guys a question. If you see a CM ulting and you are playing Lion, are you going to hex her to cancel it or stun her? And the answer is absolutely. Because that's what everyone's instinct is. It's like seeing a Witch Doctor deathboarding and not stunning him. Most people will, even if it's not what they should do. Because let's think about it. From Submarine's perspective, which is the enemy team here, they can't afford to use massive spells on supports if they want to win the fight. It just won't work. And so, even though they're getting destroyed here anyway, and no matter what Puppey did, they would still win the fight, what's important to notice is that he just drops his ulti here. It's going to do damage to the Arc Warden illusion, it's not overextending, and now the Mars might feel inclined to spear him. And once again, as I said, this is not the best example. The Mars literally can't do anything at all. It wouldn't matter what the Mars does. It doesn't matter what Puppey does in this case because of how far ahead he is. But I still want you to understand that concept of you can actually just straight up use your freezing field to bait out major stuns, and so don't feel like it's a damage spell. Use it as a bait. Make people overcommit onto you. And that's of course after you use your 2 other nukes, and that's why the order you cast your spells should always be Q, Frostbite, Freezing Field. The only situation where that is not the case is if you're trying to lock down an Ember or a Puck or a Quap who can blink down, in which case you should leave with Frostbite to prevent that from happening. And now to end off the video, I just want to show one more very important fight. By the way, if you're playing CM, the only items you really should be buying are Wand, Windlace, Raindrops, Clarities, maybe a Mango, and then a Force Staff and a Glimmer. Any other items are just usually not good. Are there situations where a Medallion could be viable, or maybe an Urn? Yeah, but for the most part, just going in items such as Force Staff or Glimmer is the way to go. Usually, in my opinion, Glimmer is just the best option. Now, in this fight here, let's look at his spellcasting. He actually leads with the Frostbite in this case, and I think the reason for that is mainly because he was actually in range for it. As I said earlier, the goal in Dota, more often than not, is to use whatever spell you can first, right? So, in this case, he can use the Frostbite first, get that going, get it off cooldown, and then he'll Crystal Nova to follow. Honestly, he could have done it in either order and it would have been fine, but nonetheless, right, Frostbite, instantly Q. And this is what I mean, guys. Get your spells out. I know I say the same things over and over again, but I watch position 5 players, and it is disturbing how long it takes people to cast their spells. It like boggles my mind. There's not always that much you can do in team fights to have a lot of impact, but this is the major one. Getting multiple rounds of spells off is the major impact you can have. Now in this case, he's actually not going to disengage. He just straight up ulties to try to burst the Magnus, which is a smart play. And now the Magnus is like, I have to cancel this. I'm going to die to it. Also, it looks like a theoretically good RP. It's like I can RP the CM and I can RP a core. It's a good RP. Usually would be, but the problem is Nisha actually has Aegis. Now the Drow got hit as well, so all in all, this actually was definitely a good RP. But he felt inclined to cancel the CM ulti, and because of that, yeah, I mean, sure, they killed the CM, right? That's great and all. He actually should have gotten off his Q there. I think he maybe could have. It was a bit close, but whenever you're dying, remember guys, when you're dying, do not panic. Get your spells off. So I think he was trying to help disengage his TA a little bit. Maybe he's looking to Force Staff. He actually did Force Staff. Got clipped by Shockwave, which canceled it, funny enough. But all in all, he did go for the Q, right? You saw that? It was almost on cooldown, which would have killed off this Lina here. So whenever you're dying, get off your spells. And that would have been his impact there. He would have prevented Alina from living, even though it was on a small portion of XP, and Nisha kills him off eventually. Anyway, yeah, he's going to end up winning the fight. So forces a somewhat mediocre RP. It was solid, but definitely not good enough to win this game. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please do like and subscribe. If you learned anything or you have any questions about CM, let me know. A couple more tips I'd like to give just in general. I guess this could be a bit of a bullet point list that you can have next to yourself. In solo queue, if your team is doing nothing, like it's a very, very passive game, and the lanes are doing nothing, you feel like you can't kill anyone and they can't kill you, or no one's just doing anything, what you want to do is stack multiple jungle camps that are close to each other. Then when you stack those camps, bring them together and ulti them. Yes, I'm not kidding you. Use your ulti in order to farm. And yeah, that's gonna be all. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one, and peace. Before you leave, just want to say a quick message. If you're trying to get better at Dota or you just enjoyed that video, I know this is pretty general and you're gonna hear this quite a bit from me, but I recommend you sign up to GAMELEAP.com. Why? Because I put a lot of effort into the content over there, and generally the effort I do there is different from the content you're going to see here on YouTube. It is different. In fact, I usually go a lot more in depth on topics or into niche topics that help you get to the next level even faster. Because on YouTube, I often have to keep it more mainstream, and that's even why I'm putting it at the end of this YouTube video. That's why this is at the end, because a lot of people just watch 5 minutes, they skip through just for like the dopamine spike. But if you are interested in actually getting better at Dota, I recommend you go to the description down below, get your discount right now by clicking the link, sign up, use the discount code that you're gonna see there, and I hope to see you there right now. So click it, and yeah, thanks for watching.